what we have is I have a great panel from a very diverse background. Someone from a startup, right, a founder, someone from a very global organization, and someone from a organization sitting at head office, which is SAP, that's Ravi, and someone from Walmart, which is based out of India, and really kind of a distributed hub that they're working on. And so what we will see today, and this is more for the audience who's there as a product manager, is to actually see what are the similarities and differences when you go across different kinds of businesses, from B2C to B2B, or a startup to a large organization to a mid-sized organization like Tally, also where I have worked myself in the past. So we will try to bring in these differences, call out these differences very sharply, and that is our key focus. And you can probably tailor it to your needs and your organization, what it means, right? So be attentive to the differences, be attentive to the similarities that you will see. Uh, I would like each of the panel to introduce themselves and kind of upfront start with the problem that they are solving and how product management contributes to the success of the company. And yeah, Priya, you want to go first?
Sure.
And, yeah.
So good afternoon, everybody. I'm Priya, and I lead the customer products at Walmart. So anything that is part of the US e-commerce omnichannel business. I'm based out of Bangalore. I'm senior director of product management. Been doing product ever since even before the job function itself was well defined. Completely passionate about products. Been in a variety of domains, startups to big company, CRM, SaaS, ad tech, seller systems, and now e-commerce retail. So Rakesh, to start off about what are the problems that we are trying to solve here at Walmart? When Walmart started, we started off as a retail company. It's about close to 60 years ago. It was all about, what is it that we can do to make customers' lives easier, give them better prices, better conveniences so that they can really lead better lives. Those principles have stayed to the same even today, right? But a lot has changed in the customer mindset and how we can actually leverage technology. So now the customer of today is not really in one place. The conveniences are, have new manifestation. It's not about, having a store near me, within a few miles of where I live. It's really about companies need to be where the customer is, especially in retail and in e-commerce. So whether it's a customer who is sitting at home and wants things delivered to him, whether the customer is sitting at home and she does not is actually not home and still wants things delivered, whether it's directly to the refrigerator or to a cooler that's outside. So things have changed, right? It might be a customer walking into a store and really needing help on finding exactly where something is, being able to check out very, very quickly, whether it's self checkout, whether it's cashierless. So things have changed in terms of what those conveniences are. And for Walmart, it's really about how do we build these hyper localized, very uber personalized omni-channel experiences, being exactly where the customer is and keeping up with addressing those finding new opportunities where we can be where the customer is. So while I'd like to say there's multi-channel where you have all these different channels, but to become truly omni-channel, it needs to be a very connected experience. We need to know exactly what the customer did across the experience. So you may for us it means you may have actually placed an order online and you might decide that I'm just going to drive by and curbside drive through pick up my order. It might be that I bought something in store but I really want to call FedEx to come and pick up something from home. So for us it's really about all of that. Really, how do we make these products, how do we for one have the right assortment, how do we have it in a way that is that the customer finds it most convenient for. So those are some of the things that we do.
Okay, great. Thanks, Priya. Srivatsan, you want to go next?
Hey, Rakesh. Thanks, everyone. It's really happy to be here. So I'm Srivatsan, co-founder of ClearTax. I'm a computer science engineer and a designer, and I've spent most of my life, like during college and before college, just tinkering with websites. Started from like GeoCities days, building small websites, products, applets, that sort of thing, and that took me into like a love of product management. And with ClearTax, I think that was my second foray into entrepreneurship, and that's something that started taking off and built it over the past 8-9 years.
Okay.
So at ClearTax, we're fundamentally simplifying finances for India, and this is for both individuals like you and me and businesses as well. So like broadly, we are helping people and millennials fundamentally with investment, tax savings, tax filing, and just how do you take control of your financial lives? Like how do you have an easy way to tax save, invest, that sort of thing. And so digitization of personal taxes started in 2008, but like India is slowly catching up, and it's a tough problem for people who are not very tech savvy, who are not in like the main cities and stuff. So we find like innovative ways of like solving that really really difficult problem for people. Then on in ClearTax, our B2B side of the journey started when GST came in India, and since then we've been helping large enterprises with GST, with enterprise software, with invoice discounting, lending, that sort of thing. And for the small businesses, we're fundamentally helping people with cash flow. How do you get paid faster? How do you make sure like with digitization happening, with e-invoicing, with all of these things coming into the country, how do you just go from pen and paper sort of managing your business to like a business where you're actually dealing with everything online, where you're able to sort of receive payments, send payments, and do your compliances in a very very simple way. And apart from that, we've also helped chartered accountants in India. So that's high level what we do.
Yeah. Thanks. Ravi, you want to go?
Yeah, thank you, Rakesh, and thank you everyone for this opportunity. Thank you, Priya and Srivatsan, to join me in this panel. I've been in industry for about 30 years now. Been working for 30 years building products. Most of my 30 years, 24 years, I've just entered 24th year at SAP, building products for SAP. And currently I'm localized to an industry solution, I would say. I'm heading the product management for industry solutions retail. So I try to solve the problems what Priya is having with providing the right solutions so that Priya can take the solutions forward and provide the experience what her consumers need. I think that's the main challenge we have. I think fundamentally building traditional on-premise softwares to moving to a SaaS environment, I think that's the cultural shift we are looking at, and that's the big challenge for a big organization like SAP to move into a real best practiced product management organization to drive the products from a product management aspect, not an engineering aspect or an executive aspect, because then everything has its own challenges there. But being led by a product management unit driving this roadmap and strategy, I think that cultural shift is happening. And this cultural shift, I think, Rakesh, you remember your days at SAP, I think this was the fundamental challenge what we had. And now we are moving into the right direction, I think, with the agility that is needed to deliver innovations faster to the customers, so that they can satisfy their consumers and consumers. I think exactly. I think we have seen that already last year with the pandemic, the way the whole retailer grocery market has changed. I would like to limit my example to retail for the time being. The market has changed, bringing the what we call buy online, pick up in store. Exactly what Priya said, curbside pickups, delivering and home, timely delivery. Let's say I would fix up a schedule. I want to pick it up at that time. Don't want to enter the physical store. I need all my facilities available on my fingertips. So this kind of challenges, I think we have to be faster to the market. And can we be faster to the market by having a clear product management led unit? I think that's where because in my opinion, I think we will delve into those aspects deeper when we go into discussions. I think product management is a voice of the customer for me. And we understand the needs, the challenges, what we need to build at what time. It's all about the value, what we generate with our products, rather than features, what we create for the product. I think I want to stop saying that we should stop thinking from an can do it attitude to should we do it attitude. I think should we really build this product?
Yeah.
I don't want to end up on a shelf where I would rather want a product that is used by customer to generate the value. Yeah, Rakesh, back to you.
I think great point. I think great points emerged, and can do to should we do. I think is a very important question, and that's the why part of the problem that we need to solve. And thanks for the brief introduction of the problem. And the reason I wanted you to introduce was largely the practices that you are doing as a product management team, right? Uh, they would differ, right? They would differ when you look at the size of the company, the problem that you're solving, and so it now the audience will be able to relate to what you would say in the next set. And maybe let's go to the next level and little we click into this. So now we understand the business context, right? And if you look at the theme of this NPC this time is reimagine next, right? And it means that I think we've heard a lot of leaders talk about their aspirations and aspirations like, hey, this is what we want to do, this is what will happen. But it actually boils down to how do you translate this aspiration to execution, right? And to me, that's the key, and that's where it kind of the product team starts to play in and kick in, right? And even giving feedback that, hey, this aspiration is the wrong aspiration, right? Or this aspiration should not be chased, right? I think I would really like to go into the how of it, right? And not really. And you can take one example from your organization and talk about an aspiration, talk about how you translate that aspiration to a strategy and what it means to you as a strategy, and who does what. If you can cover this very broad frame, I think would be awesome. And maybe I'll start this time with Srivatsan, from a startup perspective, right? The kind of dynamics you are in, and if you can go more in the how part of it, and maybe with some examples would be great.
Correct. So that's a good question, Rakesh, and very difficult for us also because so we have four companies in one. A lot of people know about our consumer side, but we also, like I said, right, enterprise, SME, CA, and all of that. And I think our aspirations are like to just simplify finances, and that requires so that fundamentally means that the product that we build, the digital product that we build, is going out to every customer, and that is what is going to make them successful or is going to make them fail. So I think it's super important for PMs in ClearTax to understand that everything starts from there.
Mhm.
And the sort of aspirations that we have, I'll just start from that point.
Mhm.
We want to get to a place where we have 1 million people this year. So I'm talking about 2021. We have 1 million people using our new app for investments and tax savings and stuff.
Mhm.
And
That's
these
yeah.
million people are going to come from tier 2, tier 3 cities, not like tier 1 cities where investment and tax savings, at least people have like a view. So so this requires like PMs to really understand multiple customer segments. It's not just one large customer segment that you're dealing with. You have
Okay.
to understand like people who don't speak English as a first language, people who don't use technology in their day-to-day lives. They're actually outside in the field and stuff. How do they think about finances? People who don't make the kind of salaries that you make in Bangalore,
Mhm.
and they have a lot more, let's say, family commitments and stuff. How do they think about investments and savings? So
Right.
everything starts from there. And like if you're not breaking down like large monolithic segments into smaller micro segments and solving for them, it's going to be difficult. So that's one major thing that I would like my PMs to sort of remember and keep with them.
No, great. I think that's awesome. In fact, I remember my tally days during the GST time. We did exactly this kind of a behavioral analysis to come out with the micro segments. Because if you're trying to make a large scale impact, every customer will behave very differently. So, what is their behavior, what it does, what it takes, I think is the key. Uh, a follow-up question, Shivatsan, here, a quick question. Like, okay, now this is what you want to do, right? And you have done some analysis of segmentation, you have done analysis of what you want to achieve. How does the project gets created? How does the engineering and the product management team gets together and say, hey, this is what we will do and why we will do, and kind of visualize the solution before.
Good question. And obviously at a startup, things are not like we don't allow things to be very bureaucratic or go through too many stages. So I think PMs have to understand that like their job is like everything from like just understanding the vision and sort of breaking it down and executing it, and then even customer support if need be, right? So I think how it starts is basically I think we have some conversations. There may be business folks, sales folks. We talk about like the vision and just break it down, right? Like, and you can break it down into multiple frameworks, whatever you please. Some of the easiest things to get started with is, okay, what's an acquisition set of, what's the vision which breaks down into acquisition? What's the vision that breaks down into retention, into revenue, into some high level pieces like that. And then you can flesh out, hey, what's going to help me, what's going to help me solve this via product. So we use lever trees. Lever trees are basically like the dumb and simple version of OKRs in some sense. But once you have like a lever tree, and then at some point when you grow a little more mature as a company, you can do OKRs. But that working backwards from a goal or working backwards from multiple goals, that really helps execution happen. And I think people understand that, okay, my job is not just writing a spec. My job is like, you know what, to solve this acquisition problem, the most important thing is like making sure like banners are there on our pages, or making sure that there is a very solid referral program. And then what needs to be done becomes very clear automatically.
No, awesome. I think I get the point that, from connecting it to the business objectives and what will allow these business objectives to take place allows you to kind of pick up and prioritize and do that subject.
Yeah. So and that's one of the hardest things for me also, right? Like I've only worked in small companies or started this company. I don't have the kind of experience like the other panelists have. So I like someone told me this once, and I have like a post-it note stuck in front of me, like goal backwards in every conversation. So like, I think that just focuses me. Just be goal backwards all the time.
Awesome. So I think good point. As a startup, you are on a very survival mode, and I think it's very important to be keeping that agility and having a goal and the clarity of that goal and moving it forward. I think awesome point. I think let's move and let's understand, like, as a large organization, Ravi, especially when you are dealing with such a multiple I mean, you are dealing with one product, but you have so many people to deal with a large organization like SAP, right? So how does it happen? How does the aspirations takes place? And the same question, if I have to go, and how to keep on executing.
Absolutely. I actually want to be, the grass is green at the other side. I would like to be in his chair, Srivatsan Chari, and look at it from his perspective. Absolutely, that's a different view. And ultimately, we are coming to that, honestly, Srivatsan. Every unit needs to behave and act like a startup. Otherwise, we don't get that agility, that speed, and that creativity in innovation. I think that's the fundamental understanding we could get. We are a big organization. We are running with OKRs coming top down from the board. We have a strategy alignment that, okay, this is where we need to invest. Then we bring it down to the industry level. For each industry, we have an OKR. And we are not only dependent from an industry perspective, we are also dependent from our flagship products, which are the end-to-end ERP solutions, plus the platform what SAP has. And we now need to fit in the industry requirements in between this, and then try to see and say, okay, what is important? And luckily, being in one of those fundamentally strategic industries like retail and consumer products, we believe that we are able to drive this OKR forward for the company. I think this is important, how we define the strategy and the roadmap. But what we do internally, Rakesh, to your question, how do we internalize this strategy and then break it down? What we are trying to look at is that each product manager, we are telling them, you act like a mini CEO of your product. So that means he gets that empowerment, he gets that clear guidance that he needs to drive it like a kind of a startup, I would say. He has all the wherewithal to make the decisions. Right. He's able to make the pivot, saying that, okay, I made this decision, but I want to pivot it now, saying that this doesn't go forward. But that kind of guidance is coming in. I think this is new to you when you hear it, Rakesh, but this is
that's why I'm finding it so interesting now.
This is where we are moving, because if we want to play in the SaaS environment, if we want to play with the innovations in the cloud native environment, we need to have this kind of mentality and attitude. I think this is fundamental. What we do is now, what we have done is, from an industry strategy perspective, we have identified the areas where we need to play, the areas where we have a right to build. SAP believes that we have a right to build because of the experience, because of the functional richness what we have on the back end, the advantage of the back end, the advantage of the platform what we have. We have some areas where we believe that we have a right to build new innovations. That's number one. We are also identifying the white spaces in the end-to-end process. For example, what Priya talked about, buy online, pick up in store, or buy online, curbside pickup, or using one of the stores as a fulfillment center. These processes, they are end-to-end processes.
Correct.
In this end-to-end processes, customers will have pain points in some process steps.
Right.
To identify these pain points, try to build solutions to solve these pain points. Rather than building a monolith end-to-end solution, we are now looking at what value can we bring with our cloud native solutions to solve these pain points.
Okay.
That's the mentality shift what we had. So when we come down from a strategy saying, okay, one of the areas is what kind of omni-channel strategies we want to invest in.
Right.
And we take an end-to-end process. We go from an order capture, order fulfillment, order orchestration, order fulfillment, post-order, post-sales. What are the areas where we have challenges? We identify that and make one minimal marketable product as our product. And this becomes a startup for us in the true sense. This team goes and runs like a startup, builds a strategy for that, builds a vision for that, talks to customers, understands the pain points, creates the journey maps to from an as-is situation to a to-be situation, and then tries to build the product on that.
Okay.
We're not going to build till we are confident that we have a set of customers who are willing to embark with us on a co-innovation journey.
Okay.
This is fundamental shift now. We are completely changing our view to a customer-centric view.
That's a hell of a change happening.
The hell of it. SAP was always
So glad to hear that.
Yeah, sorry. We always build shelfware in SAP. We said we build the product, we give it to you, you customize it, you make use of it. Now we are shifting our gears a bit, trying to understand the problem, create the solution for the problem. You also have to understand that there are so many best of breed competitors around for every problem. There are at least 4 to 5 good competitors, and you have to fight with them. You have to fight with the agility of their innovation skills. You have to fight with a lot of other parameters, but we need to be there. I think the mentality, what we are doing is, for each product, we are trying to create a startup mentality. And the product managers need to know that they own the product. They are the mini CEO for the product. So they are guided, they are empowered to make the decision what is needed for the product.
Yeah.
At least I look at it that way.
I get that. I get a sense of how it happens. And of course, maybe we'll talk a little later in the next round of question around how multiple portfolios across kind of assemble when you work in the product team. So we'll talk about that. Just hold on, because that's the thought going in my head.
And just to give an example, I think one of the examples is the returns management. Returns management is a key challenge for retailers.
Yeah.
How do you manage it? Because it's more of a manual task today.
Correct.
It's more of a when the store associate or a warehouse associate gets a return, he needs to understand what he needs to do with it, what kind of indisposition he has to make, decision he has to make. Should he put it to quality? Should he throw it away for a sustainability reason, or should he put it back on the store or outlet? We now use all the data from a customer perspective. Why is he returning? All the questions what we pose to the customer now, we collect it, we make an intelligent decision using machine learning and artificial intelligence, so that we propose a possible solution for the associate already.
Yeah.
So that we try to automate his process so that he has more efficiency in his task, so that the indisposition decision can be made fast. And then also later we have analytics to help them out. So these kind of small innovations we want to add up to our existing backend solutions, but we do not want to be coupled only with the SAP backend. We also want to create backend agnostic solutions. That's also major change in the way we think now.
In shortage of time, I think we'll have to move a little forward and kind of take Priya. And I just looked at the time, so I think we'll have to
Sure.
move little fast.
Sure.
Priya, if you
So
can share with your thoughts, how does the breakdown of aspiration to
yeah,
execution?
yeah, yeah. I think a lot of what Ravi was talking about is what we see in real. That's reality for us, right? For us, the purpose is really to create and engage customers, right? Growth for us is really, how many customers, and it manifests itself in the experience, whether it's in store, online, curbside. It's those things that we need to be aware of.
Right.
I'm going to take a slightly different example just to kind of show how it works in a big company. I mean, much like what Ravi talked about, there are different units. Like, so we have product managers who work on the returns experience, omni-channel returns, and they have their own set of experiences that they can improve. Where are they? Where is the friction? How can we remove the friction? How can we use personalization to make it a better experience? But for something to really change in Walmart, something that's going to make it really make a big difference in terms of, here's how we can push something to you faster. I mean, Ravi talked about, really instead of fulfillment centers, we're seeing, the stores themselves becoming the fulfillment center. So that's how we can get, your orders delivered in 2 hours, right? I mean, so it needs to enable that. Now, when you look at the set of products and portfolios that we have, if we take a feature like, 2-hour delivery, let's say we really want to enable that. It's something we have today. But if you wanted to do something along those lines, it's going to impact everything from, experience teams. It's going to impact the supply chain. It's going to impact our catalog. It's going to impact our returns. It's going to go across. Right. So for us, I mean, one of the ways that we can actually go beyond just improving each experience in a silo is really for, from a leadership level to take a stand to say, hey, this is our corporate priority. This is something we need to do, which means all the different teams need to align. Right, which means, let's say we are building a new app, then everything from the experience to the supply chain needs to sort of, drive towards that. So for us, it's always, how do we make something big happen, in which impacts everything? How do we manage dependencies? How do we ensure that we're all working in lockstep? And then there's also the individual pieces, right? How do we make sure that our part of the experience, whether it's returns, whether it's the actual shopping, whether it's search, how do we keep making incremental improvements there? How do we make disruption happen there? Right. So we always look at, like, the value across several, different levers. So whether it's, from a economic perspective, can we offer new programs, a subscription program or a membership program? How do we do something that's more functional? Like, how do we ensure that you get something back in, you can receive your order in 2 hours? Experience. I think that's a big part of what we do. How do we make sure there's no friction?
Right. I think definitely, I think we have got a very broad perspective now from B2B to B2C, how to think about a problem, how to reach towards that goal. I think also look at some of the organizational frame changes that we are talking about to bring the agility around it, how to focus, Srivatsan covered, right, from a goal perspective backwards. I think Ravi is saying there's a huge disruption that he's shifting. I think it really takes me to the next section of our conversation, where I wanted a perspective on the PM as an organization structure is one part of it, and the product team, which is a cross-functional product teams typically. So when we organize a reporting frame, we have a structure in place now emerging in product management. I think it has taken different shapes and different colors in different organizations. Uh, and also the product teams, right, which are there around, which is consisting of engineering, design, product managers, and data analytics, support teams. And based on the size and based on the kind of the organization, I think it changes and differ. There are flavors to it. uh, so if you can cover these aspects of the structure, right, of product management as a function, and the structure of the project that gets created as a product team, what works, what doesn't work, based on your organization and your perspective, given the fact you have some aspirations to achieve. So it should be a forward-looking view also is fine with me. I think. So who wants to go first? Srivachan, why don't you start from a startup perspective? So I think
Sure. So this is an interesting problem that we always struggle with, and a lot of times, like as we grow more mature, so I think something that people realize is sometimes like when something doesn't work out, it's probably like the org structure to blame as opposed to people to blame. Uh,
Absolutely. Labels are
I think in the beginning, right, like you may have just one PM handling such a broad width, which he or she has never done before. It's just not possible. So,
the
like you're signing up for like failure then. But I think over time, what we've gotten better at is just understanding that, right? Number one, PMs, business, engineering, design, whatever, they have to be aligned behind the same goals. Like if there is like an incentive mismatch, then like things just completely break down.
Mhm.
And so like as your PM teams grow, that org has to also be designed that way. The sort of goals that they take have to be shared. And when you have like a very close deadline, and then you want to get like a lot done very fast, like the natural urge will be, yes, throw PMs, throw engineers at it, and let's see what happens. And that's fine. But sometimes when you parallelize, you may like break people into capabilities as opposed to into goals. I think that's also super important. So if you're playing as a capability PM, you're very horizontal. You have to make sure you're catering to 3 or 4 different charters. If
Yeah.
you are oriented towards one specific goal, like your task may be a little bit narrower. So you need to know where you're playing, and you need to know who you're putting in these sort of things. Like building a platform is very different from chasing growth. Doing communication or marketing or motivation is or experience is very different from just building a very solid platform. So I think these are the sort of things that I've learned from my experience.
And it keeps on changing, right? If it evolves is what you are seeing as a startup, it kind of moves every year on year.
Correct.
With
And once you've hit like 0 to 1,
uh,
things have to completely change. You need to like reorg there, and then so on and so forth. Yeah, you're right.
I think one thing which I have seen in through my journey across three different sizes is, I think product management as a structure needs to be very flexible, and the stage at which you are, I think it shifts very fast, and it shifts based on the growth of the business rather than what you have thought from a time period perspective. Good. Uh, Ravi or Priya, you want to go, and then we can take on to Ravi.
Sure.
Priya,
Yeah, sure. So for I think just starting with the framework that we have for the product org, right? So it's really a product that works. The product org itself has product as well as data analytics. Now, analytics is the key to us to understand. Data tells us a story. So using that data to understand where the opportunities are, using that data to actually also help us build better products, to A/B test. So our team is, and we work very closely with the design team, with engineering, architects, data science. So all of those teams are really the cross-functional team. Each of us, really there are product portfolios depending upon whether it's a platform, whether it's a part of the customer journey that you're looking at, whether it's the search experience, the returns experience, post transaction. So there are different portfolios or different segments of products, and it sort of all rolls into a separate product org. So we have a standalone product organization which is headed by a chief product officer, and we have vice presidents who have certain goals, OKRs that they want to meet with their set of problems. And of course, it sort of comes from the top and from the bottom. So each of us would innovate in our own areas. So it's really a combination of all of this. And I would say product is really what facilitates all of this. It's really everyone's product. And so really getting that mindset, getting that culture of everyone really obsessing about the customer, having access to what is it that the customer needs, hearing the voice of the customer, being able to look at data, being able to so it's, I think, user research is a big part of what we should be doing, really qualitative research as well as data to tell us that story. And so it's really a very cross-functional effort, very metrics driven. Ideas come from everywhere. It's all of these sources that kind of point to opportunities, and then of course there's also the company goals and where we want to go.
Yeah. No, very nice. Ravi, I want you to bring in a special perspective of leading a global team, right? So you have teams across the globe, right? And product management teams. So how do you really operate out of that structure, right? And if you can share this. So,
It's a good problem to have, I would say. I think no manager or no coach of Indian team would have complained to have Sachin Tendulkar playing in India. That's a good problem to have. So for me, I would say I go with Priya and Srivatsan in a way, saying that okay, we do have units, and each unit has its own engineering, technology, and product management. We have that bifurcation of the silo, you want to call it. We do have a dedicated product management unit for the industries. But when we now play around in multiple countries, multiple locations, we have a challenge because we have our engineering excellence, let's say in India or China or any other location. We have product managers based out of different locations. There is a time zone challenges. There's a communication. There is clear-cut priorities, alignment. There are multiple challenges that can come up on that. But what we are doing now is, since we are trying to move into a true product management unit, using all the best possible practices, what we have seen and what we have learned now, all of us are going through multiple trainings, to understand the modern technologies, modern tools. What we are trying to do is to create local product management units in such a way that they are empowered to deliver what is needed for the local engineering teams. That's number one. We also want to understand the local markets because sitting out in Germany, can I understand the Indian market? Can I make it? Of course, I can do that because of my past experience, but everybody cannot do that. So we also want the local product management members to also be a kind of a voice of the customer from the local markets. And that starts to add value to the role what they play. Because they are now helping the so-called, like Srivatsan mentioned, that it could start with one product manager for one product, but that's too much to do because there are so many activities that needs to go. So we typically are looking at somewhere around 2 to 3 product managers for each product, and each product size is about, we want to deliver a product in, let's say, 6 to 9 months. That's a new methodology where we are looking at 6 to 9 months, 6 months with the first beta release and the 9-month general availability of the product. Having such kind of a minimal marketable product, we are looking at 2 to 3 product managers managing it. So one of these product managers will be a local product manager because he needs to build the bridge between the units, the technology unit, the engineering unit, the product unit, wherever it is based out of the key location. I think this is critical. And he also needs to bring in the local voice of the customer market, local market voice, because otherwise then we lose out. We build a product only for, let's say, North America. It doesn't work in China. Or it doesn't work in the Asian markets or Indian markets. Then it doesn't make sense. We are building global products. We need to understand and listen to the markets everywhere. So that's one thing we are looking at. And once we hand over the product to the local teams, they make the decision about what needs to be executed in what sequence. Of course, they are always discuss with the product owner or the product manager who is based out of different location, who is responsible for the product.
Let me ask a difficult question, right? You guys are being very nice to each other and nice as a cross-functional team. It doesn't work that way, right?
It doesn't. We have a lot of challenges.
What are the 2 traits that really make cross-functional team dysfunctional, right? I'm really talking about 2 traits which are dysfunctional. And maybe if you can upfront say and keep it very short because we are short of time. I really want a rapid fire. A couple of questions I have in my head, and if you can say it in 2 sentences or 1 sentence, it will be great. Right?
I will start off with. I wanted to end my conversation on that.
Sure.
2 big points. I would say misaligned priorities.
Okay.
From a local priority versus a global priority, there is completely misalignment, and that really kills it because sometimes. That's one thing. And then clear communications and responsibility. I think if you do not give clear communication and the responsibility how it has to be executed, from my side is misaligned priorities and communication is clear.
Great. Priya, you want to go next? What are the 2 points that you feel make sense?
Yeah, I think sometimes when things are very smooth, that is a dysfunction, right? I mean, people need to be challenging, people need to be questioning,
Okay.
right? I mean, and so if things are, there is no problem, everyone agrees, things happen, then there isn't enough, I would almost say there isn't enough accountability or enough passion there. You really need to be involved enough to challenge and question, and that's good friction, right? You need to be able to have different points of view and come to an agreement. So that's one. If things are too smooth, there is a problem. You're not aiming high enough. The second is, I mean, I think there should be some amount of, if there isn't enough of an obsession about the customer, right,
Mhm.
that's a dysfunction, right? I mean, there needs to be, everyone needs to understand or try to understand what is it that the customer's real needs are. And if you don't, then you are trying to build things in a vacuum, or not really, it won't go the way you want to. So I think those would be my big two.
Okay.
I think, like Ravi said, shared accountability is no accountability. So in cross-functional teams, that becomes super, super critical.
Okay.
And I think, like what Priya mentioned, that really rings true. So number one, you obviously have to
Mhm.
be oriented towards the customer. But like, if you lose the pursuit of excellence,
Mhm.
like on any dimension, that really hurts. So
Mhm.
it's very easy sometimes when you're doing something really difficult, or
Right.
faced with failure after failure, it's very easy to give up or say, "Ki, theek hai, this mediocre sort of outcome is fine."
Right.
And that's when things really go down a slippery slope.
Right. Makes sense. I think I'll take a couple of audience questions which is kicking in, and actually this is also was my next question, and I saw just now a question around it. Uh, so I think a lot of product manager feels that there is an engineering driven organization around, right? Uh, and that is the cat, right? Everybody has that, nobody's talking about it, right? uh, so I think if the tech team is pulling in a lot of weight, or a product team is putting in a lot of weight, as the leader that I have seen, at least we have suffered, right? So on we do kind of hold a very broad perspective, but what tends to happen is, where the weight lies, sometimes it kind of creates it dysfunctional. So how do you deal with those situations, how to avoid those situations which are there around, and some tips.
Maybe when we say engineering, I go first and give my opinion. When we have an engineering-led unit, I would
Mm-hmm.
say we are more feature-based.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of feature we have to, what kind of technology we
Mm-hmm.
are completely, I would not say completely, to be fair with them, we
Mm-hmm.
will somehow keep the customer pain point or customer problem in the background.
Mm-hmm.
We will not look at the customer problem and try to solve the customer problem rather than create more features if the
Right.
customer may not need it.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have to understand what is the value what we are doing, why will the customer pay for it,
Mm-hmm.
and how is he going to use it, to generate the transformation he needs in his business.
Right.
That aspect only comes when you look at from a product management perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Engineering led is typically feature based and technology based.
Okay.
At least that's my view.
Okay.
Yeah, I can go next, Rakesh. So I think this probably happens because there's a gap in product management. I think what product needs to, and that's part of the role, is really defining the vision. Really energizing everybody towards that vision, aligning people towards that vision. And so when that does not happen, we end up doing more. Here's a platform that we just need to re-architect because we believe it needs to be re-architected. There's a lot of tech debt that'll always come, but
Right.
really, being able to tell that story, align, and really show that vision of what is it that the company needs to do and why that's important. I think that's the part that, if that existed, we'd be able to actually take engineering, take the rest of the partners along with us in terms of driving
Yeah.
and making progress.
I'll I'll take a little more tactical sort of this thing, and this is something that I've struggled with also.
Okay.
So engineering is like 3+ decades old in India, right? Like, or
Yeah.
Indians doing engineering.
Okay.
Indians doing product is probably like a decade old or so. So like product management is so new in India, right? And like in engineering, you have very clear, very well defined paths. You want to take the IC path or the architect path, or an EM path. In product management, it's still so difficult to find great people managers or great people leaders. There's so few in that sense. So I think that's evolving and we're learning, and it's I think it's very important for people to think PMs for to actually reflect and figure out what are they really good at. Like if people who come from like an analyst background, they sometimes have a very difficult time trying to solve communication or design problems. People who come from, let's say, a business or a marketing background have a really hard time with platform problems. So you need to really figure out what kind of PM you are, and like sort of orient yourself towards those kind of problems. And you'll see when you are with a problem that you can build passion for. It's never like you're going to like find a problem that you're naturally passionate about. I don't think anyone sort of became passionate about tax law. So even you can find something where you can like really put your thought process and be very passionate, that would really like help you take like a forward step.
Yeah. And my view, I think great point all of you. And my view there is also in a similar way that if I'm a product manager, I need to understand the technology capability, right, or the capability that I require to leapfrog in my roadmap, right. If I am looking to solve a specific problem of a customer, so I definitely need to understand the technology and its power of technology, what can be done, what can't be done. I think understanding those boundaries becomes super critical to even think about what possibly a product can do or what kind of problems a product can solve. I think so. To me, it's a very thin balance, is what approach I have taken. Like understand the customer on one side and understand the tech on the other side. Not that you have to own the tech, but actually understand the power of it and see how you can influence how it is shaping up in the organization. I think that kind of a balance, that kind of a conversation helps.
A lot of unlearning needs to be done for us. Absolutely. Good point, Srivatsan.
Good. I think it was great talking. I think we're short of time. A bunch of questions out there. I will share these questions to all of you. I think it will be great if we can get a response and put it as a. We will put it as a LinkedIn article as such. So I think it will be good to get a response from you. I think the team, the volunteers, will work in that. We have hosts of product managers, so they've put a bunch of questions out there. So thanks, audience. I hope it was a useful conversation. You would be able to see different organizations having different practices. Of course, the challenge is with you. You got to tailor it to your need, to your organization, to your business. Understand that. Look at what aspiration it is chasing and how to break it down to execution. What can enable in the structure as an organization structure as well as in the project structure in a cross-functional team. So if you have seen this kind of a heated debate that we all went through, I think brought up some points. We'll be more than happy to share our responses, what are questions you have shared. Thank you all. Thank you, volunteers, and thank you, Srivatsan, Priya, Ravi. I think this was a awesome conversation. I think we can talk for 2 days, I believe, just to evangelize product management.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.